So last week on Topic Tuesday, we talked about surveillance. This article was by Duke, I believe. We were talking about going over the surveillance of aortic aneurysms. And if you're part of our community, you've heard us talk about this. If you're new, one of the things that we talk about a lot is you should have a surveillance plan. And a surveillance plan is after you've been diagnosed or you had an event, you should be working with your team of doctors to have a sequence of what your surveillance should look like. Are you getting MRIs? Are you getting CT scans? Are you getting an echo? How often is your medication being monitored? What tests should you have for your medication? What symptoms should you be monitoring in between those surveillance visits? So this is what happens during some of these surveillance visits. So to review, an aneurysm is a bulge or ballooned area within the wall of a blood vessel that causes that area of the vessel to stretch to a size larger than its normal width. And for aortic aneurysm, if the diameter of the aneurysm is greater than 1.5 times the size of a normal aorta, it is identified as an aneurysm. There's so much discussion that happens in our community about, is mine too big? How fast is it growing? How do I know when to have surgery? And the 1.5 times the size of your normal aorta, that's really important, because if you're a 6'7" man, your aorta is going to be much different size than a 5'5" woman. So there's no blanket statement about at what size should you have surgery. I know there's lots of charts. If you Google them, you can find some charts about your height and the size of the aorta and when to do surgery. But that's just one piece of the information that the doctor will look at during your surveillance. In an aneurysm, the vessel loses its strength to accommodate different blood vessels, different blood volumes. This leads to higher risk of a dissection or a rupture, which can cause life-threatening bleeding or potentially death. An aneurysm can develop anywhere along the aorta, with most occurring in either at the abdomen or an area that runs through the chest. If the aneurysm is large and occurs in an area nearest to the heart, it may affect the aortic valve and lead to heart failure, as the valve is not able to function properly. In my case, I had my dissection. It was a type A. It was very close to the aortic root, the part of your aorta that goes into your heart. So I had the emergency surgery, but after my surgery, that valve just was still not working. And so 2 years later, I had to have that valve replaced. Once formed, an aneurysm will gradually increase in size, and the wall of the aorta will progressively become weaker. Just think of that garden hose. True growth of an aneurysm can be considered if there's a 3 millimeter or greater size increase in a year when compared to the previous similar imaging study, whether it's CT scans, whatever they use to monitor you with. Please note that there are factors that can use a different aortic aneurysm measurement that might lead to a 1 millimeter difference, such as the use of a different scanning machine, background artifact, motion in the image, or a different person reading and examining the images for the measurement. It's recommended that your cardiothoracic surgeon and cardiologist examine the scans and determine the exact measurement themselves to monitor the aneurysm. This is where it's really important, if you have any control over being able to go to the same place every time for your CT scan, for your MRI, even in the same machine. It makes a huge difference. But this is also why your doctor may not go by the written report. He wants to see those scans for himself because he knows how he measures. And I've had it explained to me that some doctors or some of the radiologists, when they're measuring, some will measure from the outside to the outside of that aorta, or that aneurysm. Some will measure from the inside to the inside. I've even heard some will measure from the outside to the inside, and they do these diagonal things. And it's so, because that aneurysm isn't going to be just like a ball. They're long and curved. So everybody has a different way of measuring. You want your doctor to always look at those scans, not go by the report. And if you get a chance to see the report, don't freak out like we all have. If you see something that doesn't make sense, talk to your doctor. If you have an aneurysm, are at a high risk for an aneurysm, or have a family history of aneurysms, please be sure to reach out and discuss your concerns and screening options with your cardiologist or surgeon. And this is, so this was from Duke, and he says, stay healthy. So thank you, Duke, for that information. It's so helpful.